the distinction he draws in that essay between dying and death
Yeah.
was something that I could relate to through personal experience because I had very severe asthma when I was young. And I had, on one particular occasion when I was 14, I went into respiratory arrest and came very close to dying. The paramedics ended up arriving just at the right time, and ended up. But I actually like that transition point. Like I was beginning to pass through that threshold from the dying to the death, and like the experience of that threshold moment, like right before the paramedics arrive, like I actually know what that distinction feels like experientially, and it is, all I can say about it is that like I just had the overwhelming sensation that I had in that moment was everything will be fine.
Mm.
Like that's everything will be fine was the overwhelming sensation. So
It's really fascinating to hear you say that
but
because
I had to let go. I had, in order to get for that transition point, I had to let go of the panic of the fact that I was dying and oh my God, I'm going to die. I might actually die. And to be like, oh, I had to accept the fact that I was going to die before I had that experience of, yes, I am going to die and everything will be okay. And I didn't actually die in that moment, but I've had no actual fear of, I really have had no fear of death since that moment in my life because of that experience.
mm,
So that has allowed me to kind of live my life without having that fear of death hanging over me.
that's
So
remarkable. And it's really remarkable too, because I mean that just gives you a different vantage into that essay,
yeah,
in a really
yeah,
rich way. And
yeah,
I mean, I'm definitely of that persuasion. And one of my good friends from graduate school has been kind of pushing me in this direction to just really take near-death experiences much more seriously as kind of empirical data
yep,
on
Hmm.
religion, right? And the claims of
yeah,
religion, especially what we say about the relationship between this world and the other world, which for Bulgakov, is not a relationship of so much of temporality, but a relationship of kind of nesting dolls of
Yeah.
realities, right? And I think it's easy to forget sometimes that so much of Bulgakov's sprawling cosmos, right? I mean, look at his essay where he talks about what happened in Crimea when he had a near death experience. I mean, he very clearly distinguishes what happens when he's younger, that near death experience, from the dying, like the
yes,
sociology of death,
right,
right? In that near death experience, he encounters his loved ones, right? And there's always an angelic guide,
yep,
right? And this is so typical in so many near death experiences that there's either an individual being of light that sort of serves as a guide or a council of them, right? That are leading people through these encounters and these memories, right? And you can really just put Bulgakov's experience up to some of these, right? I could just see him,
mm-hmm.
kind of giving his testimony on the Other Side YouTube channel or something,
Yeah,
right?
sure,
Describing what it's like,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
and is it any surprise then that in his writings on angels and etc., there's just this vividness, right? Because he himself is looking at everything the tradition says and saying, yeah, I experienced that, actually.
I like the fact that you said empirical, Roberto, because one of the things that I've said many times, like definitely under the influence of Barfield, Steiner, and Tomberg, is that I have no problem with empiricism. The problem is that the empiricism that we think about usually when we're talking about being empirical brackets out half of our senses
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
we
Mm.
have spiritual senses as well,
Hmm.
and Tomberg refers to them as our spiritual sense of sight, hearing, and touch as being imagination, intuition, and inspiration.
Mm,
So, if we pay attention to those spiritual senses as well as our physical senses, then we can indeed be empirical
mm.
Mm.
and trust the
Yeah.
information that we're receiving.
It is really, really real, And I in my own life, I had a near death experience that really changed the course of my life. Um, so it's empirical stuff. I mean, even if it's not measurable, in a
Right.
scientific way, it's empirical in the deepest sense that it's like it's something that may like a big concrete effect. You know, it pushed something out into the world that wasn't there before. It's very real. I mean, yeah, you can definitely theorize it in terms of spiritual senses, because how else could you experience this thing that's not measurable by, you know, laboratory instruments? But it's remarkable how real it is, and you know, it's the stuff of life.
Yeah, I mean, I've never used a laboratory instrument to sense my consciousness.
Right.
Nothing is more real
Right.
to me than my consciousness, right? Yeah, I mean,
And you've
there's
never used a laboratory instrument to evaluate your experience of the reality of another person either.
no, yeah, certainly not. Yeah, certainly not.